So, all right, so here it is. So again, good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this course, Applied Linguistics 1. My name is Professor Mohammed Elfatihi. I will be uh, teaching you this course this semester and also Applied Linguistics 2 next semester. I I would have liked if we had met face to face, of course, because that's uh, more quality time, if you like. But since it is not possible given the current conditions, we'll content ourselves with this virtual meeting. So this course, entitled Applied Linguistics 1, is one of the semester 5 courses that you are taking, and it has a number of components. So these are the components we'll be looking at in this semester. So the first chapter is the nature and scope of applied linguistics. In this chapter, we look at the main terms used in applied linguistics, the definitions of the field of applied linguistics, and also its history, the main issues, the main branches, etc. So we'll be introduced to this discipline. In the second chapter, we'll be looking at applied linguistics and language teaching. So here we'll move from applied linguistics, which is an academic field, to language teaching, which is a professional field. In the third chapter, we look at one of the most important concerns of applied linguistics since its beginning, which is second language acquisition. So we look at a number of theories which try to explain how we acquire a second language. In the fourth chapter, we'll be discussing learner differences. So we'll be basically answering the question, why is it that some learners do better than others in language learning? Okay, so we look at the different factors which make some learners perform better than others. And finally, hopefully, if we have time, we look at curriculum development, which is, if you like, the bridge between theory and practice, which is the bridge between the discipline of applied linguistics and the field of language teaching. So these are the five components that we'll be looking at. Of course, we look at these very briefly. We will not go into details. Otherwise, each of these chapters usually take us sessions and sessions to cover. So today's first chapter is the nature and scope of applied linguistics. Now, from time to time, I will be leaving the share section to admit late comers. So before we start this chapter, let me just justify the introduction of this chapter in this course. We can't study a discipline unless we know its nature and its scope, whatever it is, be it sociology, be it psychology, be it sociolinguistics, be it syntax, be it whatever discipline. The first thing that one needs to address is the nature and the scope of applied linguistics. So in this chapter, we will look at some definitions of applied linguistics. And when we look at some definitions, our objective is for you to understand the concept of applied linguistics and also for you to be able to define the field in your own words. Now, in the exam, if ever I ask you to define applied linguistics or any other term, what I mean is for you to give me your own definition. Okay? using your own words. Keep the same meaning, of course, but you should use your own words. This is the only way you can show, you can demonstrate full understanding of the concepts. The second section will look at the nature of applied linguistics. Okay, what makes it distinct from other fields, similar fields, or related fields. Then we look at a little bit of history. When did applied linguistics start? Where? How did it develop? Etc. And finally, we look at the scope. Okay? And by the scope, we simply mean what can be considered applied linguistics and what cannot be considered applied linguistics. So far, so good. Are we good so far? Right, let's look at the definition. Now, one of the main quoted definitions for applied linguistics is produced by Richard and Schmidt, 2010, in which they say that applied linguistics is the study of language and linguistics in relation to practical problems. Now, whenever we're in front of a definition, such as this one, first thing we look at is the keywords. So here we have language, which is a keyword, linguistics, and then practical problems. So this is important. So the applied linguistics is a field which is interested. Now I'm trying to define applied linguistics in my own words based on this first definition. So applied linguistics is a field of study which is interested in any issue, in any topic that evolves around language and linguistics when it involves a practical problem, an everyday problem that can be actually solved. That's what we mean by a practical problem, a problem that could actually be solved. A second definition is that applied linguistics is an interdisciplinary field of research and practice, right, dealing with practical problems of language and communication. So this definition is produced by the International Association of Applied Linguistics. We'll mention this association later on. So here, the keywords again: interdisciplinary, research and practice, practical problems, language, communication. So the new terms involved in this definition is interdisciplinary. This was not mentioned in the first definition. So this term interdisciplinary gives us an idea about the nature of this discipline. It is an interdisciplinary field. We'll discuss interdisciplinarity in detail in a while. So it's an interdisciplinary field of research, okay, in which we do research. We collect data. So when we say research, it simply means the collection, the analysis, and interpretation of data. That's research. And practice. Now here, when we distinguish research from practice, it's simply, practice here refers to the process of trying to solve problems, not actually building a theory. And so it's a field of research and practice dealing with practical problems of language and communication. So here again, as you notice, the word communication is added. It's not mentioned in the first definition. And in fact, it adds some information, okay, some sort of information, simply because Applied linguistics is interested in any practical problem that involves language, but it could also involve communication. Okay? As you know, communication can be achieved through a number of means, not just through language, but it could be achieved through other non-language means like non-verbal communication, like gestures, etc. So any situation which involves a problem of communication is an area where applied linguistics can intervene. So here again, if I'm trying to define applied linguistics in my own words based on this definition, so I would say I would probably keep the same definition which I provided before, but I will add the term interdisciplinary. So applied linguistics is an interdisciplinary area of research, discipline, field, which is interested in in doing research and solving practical problems of language and communication. The third definition, and the last, which we'll be looking at, is by Bromfitt, 1959, in which he contends that the applied linguistics is the theoretical and empirical investigation of real-world problems in which language is a central issue. Personally, I find this definition more comprehensive, and I always advise my students, if they want to memorize the definition, which they don't need to do, this is the definition which encompasses probably the gist of and the essence of applied linguistics. It's a theoretical and empirical investigation of real world problems in which language is a central issue. Now, the key words again in this definition, we have theoretical.
Sir, please, sir.
Yes.
There are a student who's waiting for you to let them in the meeting.
Yes.
If you could accept them. Thank you.
Sure. Yes. I should have chose the settings that students can admit themselves, but I'm not really very good at this platform, Zoom. I used to use another one before, which I kind of master, but this one is not really. It's new to me, so I'm still learning its nuts and bolts. Right. So whenever there's someone waiting, please just let me know. All right. So I was saying that in this, and by the way, whenever you have a question or you wanted me to repeat something, just say it. So in this third definition, the keywords are theoretical, empirical, and real-world problems, and of course, language. Now, again, these terms, theoretical and empirical, give us an idea again about the nature of this field, which is our next section, the nature of applied linguistics. So it is theoretical, okay, and it is also empirical. When we say theoretical, as we'll see in the next slides, it simply means that this field, although not many applied linguists agree with this idea, applied linguistics tries to build a theory. That's what we mean by theoretical. When a field is theoretical, it means that it aims to build a theory. As I said earlier, not all applied linguists agree with this idea. Some say that applied linguistics is purely empirical. It's not in any way theoretical. But others claim that it's theoretical and also empirical, and they give evidence. We will look at this evidence in the coming slide. It's also empirical. It means that it's practical. It doesn't aim to build a theory, but it aims to solve a problem, actual problem. That's what we mean by empirical. So to summarize this section on the definition, I would define applied linguistics as a discipline, a field, an area of study, an area of inquiry, a domain. Okay, all of these terms are suitable. So it's a field that is interested, that is interdisciplinary, and it is interested in solving problems in which language is the main issue, or problems related to language. So this is one simple definition for applied linguistics. And of course, you can come up with your own definitions.